All right, let's talk about the hidden language of our world. We're going to dive into something called semiotics, which is basically a powerful toolkit for seeing how everything around us is packed with meaning. I mean, really think about it for a second. How does a red light mean stop? Or a thumbs up mean everything's good? Or how can a simple logo make you feel a certain way about a whole lifestyle? How do these little things get so powerful? Well, that's the big puzzle we're going to piece together right now. And to solve that puzzle, we have to start by stepping into the world of science. This is really the heart of semiotics. So, at its core, semiotics is just the study of signs. It's a whole field dedicated to that one simple but huge question: how do things get their meaning? You can think of it as a decoder ring for, well, pretty much everything, from the words we use and the ads we see to fashion and even your social media feed. Now, when I say sign, don't just picture a stop sign. In semiotics, a sign is literally anything that stands for something else. A word is a sign, a painting is a sign, the sound of a police siren, the jacket you chose to wear today. They're all signs and they're all communicating something all the time. Okay, so if pretty much everything can be a sign, how do they actually work? How do they make meaning? Well, let's turn to two of the founding fathers of modern semiotics. They gave us two slightly different but super useful blueprints for understanding this whole process. Okay, so on one side, you've got Ferdinand de Saussure. His model has two parts: the signifier, that's the physical thing, like the letters T-R-E-E, and the signified, which is the concept, the treeness in your head. Then you have Charles Sanders Peirce, who adds a third, crucial piece to the puzzle, the interpretant. That's the actual meaning that gets created in your mind when you see or hear the sign. But here's Saussure's game-changing idea. The connection between the signifier and the signified is completely, totally arbitrary. Think about it. There's nothing dog-like about the sound dog. We could have called it a blorg. It's just a convention, an agreement we all have. Meaning isn't some natural law. It's basically a social contract we've all signed. Peirce, on the other hand, gave us a really practical way to categorize these signs. First, you have an icon, which actually looks like the thing it represents, like a photo or the little person icon on a bathroom door. Then there's the index, which has a direct physical connection to its object. You know, like smoke is an index of fire. You can't have one without the other. And finally, the symbol, where the meaning is purely learned. Words, numbers, traffic lights, we navigate most of our lives through symbols. But here's where it gets really interesting. Signs almost never have just one simple meaning. To really get it, you have to start peeling back the layers. Let's just take a simple red rose. At its most basic, literal level, what we call its denotation, it's a flower, a plant, petals, stem, thorns. That's its dictionary definition. Pretty straightforward, right? But come on, nobody gives someone a red rose just to say, here is a flowering plant. The real power of that sign comes from its connotation, all the cultural baggage, all the ideas and feelings that it carries with it. For a red rose, that's love, passion, romance, Valentine's Day. And this shows you exactly how signs get loaded up with all this cultural and emotional weight. And this is where things get really, really powerful. Because when those cultural meanings, those connotations, become so common and so accepted that we don't even question them anymore, we enter the world of what the semiotician Roland Barthes called myth. And this, my friends, is the engine room of advertising and politics. Barthes has had this amazing way of putting it. He said, myth is a second-order system. What he meant is that myth basically hijacks an entire sign, its literal meaning and its cultural meaning, and uses that whole package as the building block for an even bigger, more ideological message. So let's break it down with his famous example. Okay, step one. You've got your basic sign, a soldier saluting a flag. The literal meaning is just that, a person in a uniform doing a thing. But then step two, that entire image becomes a brand new signifier. And what does it signify? Well, that's step three, the myth. That image now stands for these huge abstract ideas like patriotism, duty, or national unity. So here's the kicker. The whole point of myth is to take something that is totally constructed, a cultural value like patriotism, and make it feel completely natural, like it's just common sense. It's how a pair of sneakers stops being about footwear and becomes a sign for athletic greatness, or how a fancy car becomes a sign for you've made it. The myth makes you forget it's all a construct. So now that we have the theory down, let's bring this all back to your everyday life. How can you actually use this new semiotic toolkit to read the world around you? Well, we do it all the time using what are called codes.
Think of codes as the secret, unwritten rulebooks that our culture gives us to interpret signs. We have codes for language, codes for images, social codes for how to behave. They're like the invisible software that our society runs on, letting us make sense of things in a split second.
For instance, when you see a uniform, your brain doesn't think, oh, that's a person wearing a specific set of clothes. No, you instantly decode it as a sign of authority. Or if you're talking to someone and they raise an eyebrow, you don't see a muscle contracting. You immediately read that sign as skepticism or doubt.
And in the digital world we live in, a green check mark isn't just a bit of color on your screen. We all instantly get it. Success, completed, good to go. We're decoding signs like this thousands of times a day.
This constant, flowing, nonstop process of making meaning actually has a name. It's called semiosis. And it's such an important idea because it reminds us that meaning isn't some fixed thing that gets sent from my brain to yours. It's an active, alive process of interpretation that's always in motion. And that really brings us to the biggest, most important takeaway of all this. Meaning is never neutral. Ever. It is always, always constructed. It's built by our culture, it's shaped by our society, and it's loaded with values. Nothing means what it means just by accident.
So I'll leave you with a challenge. Now that you have these basic tools, start looking around your world. What's an idea or a belief that feels totally normal, completely natural, just obvious common sense? Could that idea actually be a carefully constructed sign? A myth that's just been waiting for someone like you to come along and decode it?